now going to ask you, what is the most precious resource that you have? Now, for 15 or 20 minutes, I'm going to spend part on this answer because this is the most crucial thing, I suppose, for any learning. Not only for listening, but for reading, for speaking, for having conversation, for anything. If I ask you one question, that as a human being, what is the most precious resource do you have? क्या हो सकता है? Something that distinguish you from animals, from plants. Like again, evolution theory I discussed with you. So what is the most precious resource? Any guessing could be there. Brain. Now, brain is the simplest answer because you could see the diagram there. Okay. But I am asking for a specific thing. Intelligence. Now, intelligence again is a vague concept because you don't know what is intelligence, and intelligence can be divided into 1,000 parts. Again, any other try? Whenever you learn things, whenever you listen to the person, whenever you try to understand, what is the thing that is consumed? If you do not have that resource, you cannot learn. Look, you have to listen first before coming to the mouth.
Skill.
Skill of what? Okay, I'll give the answer. The most precious resource that any human being has, that is attention span. Attention span is going to determine what kind of a life you are going to lead. Attention span is a thing. Suppose if I am talking to you and if you are paying attention to me, only then you can understand what I am trying to say. If you are watching movie, then your attention span is getting consumed. If you are chatting with somebody, your attention span is getting consumed. If you are attending any workshop, anything. Now, attention span is basically your psychic energy. It's a limited resource, remember it. Now, how you are going to spend this attention span determine or shape up what kind of a life you are going to live. Okay. Now, what is attention span? We'll discuss it, but let's see the fact. First fact is, of course, attention is a limited resource. The brain can process on the order of 110 bits of information each second. Suppose if you are a computer, and if you process that, how much information you can process while you are listening, reading, whatever activities you are doing, so it is 110 bits of information each second. So suppose if you live for 75 years, 60 hours each day, you use your attention span, that will get converted into 173 billion bit of information. Now, how you are going to use that attention span depend much. ऐसा होता है जैसे attention span, like it's a joke also. Housewife का example लें and comparing it with some other manager or some other person who is professional. Professional always think, the manager always think that how this lady can remember where you keep all the clothes, where you keep all the spices, at your home, in your kitchen. She knows everything, where and when you have kept it. But it's difficult for men to remember to even find the socks. He always calls his wife and asks for a socks. But at the same time, if you look at the man, he can tell you about anything about, he has to spend his attention. Suppose he's working in the finance field, then he can tell anything about, any tidbits about the finance. When the company generated profit, what is dividend, where the company is going, everything. What has happened is the man has paid attention to something else and his brain has occupied that thing. So he can recall everything what he has paid attention to. Housewife has paid attention to the spices, to the utensils, to the clothes. So she has in her brain all these things. Point here is कि आपने जिस पे अटेंशन पे करी है वो आपकी ब्रेन का पार्ट हो जाता है, आपकी साइकी का पार्ट हो जाता है. And the more you pay attention to it, the more it becomes part of your brain. Nowadays, most of the students are spending their time online. Facebook, Orkut, iPod, iPhone, videos, audios, or different type of chatting and gossiping. When you are spending that time, you are spending your attention span. And remember, it's a limited resource. Okay, if it will get consumed. So what will go into your brain? Of course, what you will pay attention to. And that will become your part of your personality. And that will reflect in your behavior also. Okay, so remember it. It's first lesson of life. That attention span should be used wisely. and should be remembered that it is your main asset. Like you can see that if you get sick, if you get ill, what happens? You cannot focus your attention on one thing. Why? Your attention span gets distorted. When you will get old, one thing will go down, one thing will get decay. That is a part of a brain, of course, and that we call attention span. Like in sickness, we cannot concentrate on one thing, and if we cannot concentrate on one thing for a long time, of course you cannot remember that thing. If you cannot understand that thing, you cannot have any ideas, you cannot have perception. So attention span, again, is the most precious resource that you're going to have. And what we pay attention to and how we pay attention to is become the psychological capital. You can spend on watching movies, you can spend on reading books, you can spend it on gossiping, and that will basically determine. Nothing about it, just for time limit, entertainment for the young people. I am taking you back in the history and showing you that how the entertainment has changed in last 150 years. Okay? So if I go back and suppose, let's say, in 1850s, most of the young people used to spend their time with friends. Okay? Now if you go back and see, in 1930s, playing with friends was there, of course, but radio added. Pulp magazine was there, like detective novels, romantic, adventurous, all things came up. So when the person get free, leisures, he spent his time in his pulp magazine, ad radio, and cheaper toys for kid. Means in 1850s, for spending your attention span, you had only your friends to discuss things with, or chatting, gossiping. 1930, your attention span get divided into 4 parts because you need all these things. Let's move on and see. In 1960, now you have TV also. So attention span, which was earlier only spent for friends, now 3 more things are there. Now TV is there. Remember, when you're using this thing, your brain is occupied in that. Then music station, video game, 70s and 80s. Then let's see, 1990s, computer game, PlayStation, and of course, the previous things are there for you consuming your attention. Then in 2000, look at the gadgets. We are surrounded by it. Think about the 1850s and think about the 2000, 150 years. How much we have changed. How much we have changed in our spending our time. And look how many gadgets are there to catch your attention. And remember, if you are spending your attention on one thing, you cannot spend it on another thing. Multitasking cannot be done by a human being. It's a myth. Multitasking means आपको ऐसा लगता है कि जैसे हम कोई लेक्चर अटेंड कर रहे हो साथ में गाने भी सुन सकते हैं, हम अपना होमवर्क कर रहे हैं और हम मूवीज भी देख सकते हैं. That is what called multitasking. That you are doing 2 tasks together, but it's a myth. Your attention span can focus only on one thing. If you are dividing it, you are not gaining anything. So if your attention span is focused on all this thing, what remains we need to consider. Look at the facts of Americans. They spend at least 8.5 hours, 8.5 घंटे daily looking at television, computer monitor or screen of their mobile phone. Or sending or receiving 272 texts a month. Now that is the time they are consuming in all this activity. Now what that has to do with the listening skill? Why I am discussing it? Remember, I am talking about attention span, and attention span is part of your learning and listening.